Why wouldn't I want someone like this to run the show?
but
You
where-
want to be relevant to the space that you're in. I can pretend I'm famous. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
I want a lion to just like hug me to
Yeah.
death.
Here we are at Three Line Coffee Shop in Kirkland with Andrew, and we're about to do 10 questions on Drawn to Your Story. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. M&M's or Skittles?
Definitely M&M's.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's been a controversy of this. Most people say M&M's, but then they go peanut M&M's. What do you?
So I heard the same question on Antonio's one, and I was like, listen, I think most people would probably say peanut. Is that
Yeah.
So I am definitely plain. And
Yes!
here's the thing.
Fuck yeah. Let's get it.
Okay, good.
I'm a plain person as well. I'll even go so far where I would rather mini M&M's.
Ooh, the minis are really good.
They are. It's the ratio, right?
Yeah, and they taste a little different
They
too.
do, yeah.
So here's the thing with the peanut that I don't like. Like conceptually,
Yeah.
you think
Conceptual-
like great, a
Yeah.
peanut and an M&M, like perfect combo. And the odd thing is that like with Gorp or trail mix, I love the combination of an M&M and a peanut, but then
Yeah.
the peanut M&M bringing it together for some reason I don't like, and I think it's because it's not salty enough, and the chocolate being like just a thin little shell isn't like
The ratio is
chocolatey
not enough.
Yeah, it's like I
So
want it
maybe
to be.
you need to get on the Antonio train and do the goober.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I've never heard of those before.
Oh, I'd
but-
never heard of them, but
Yeah.
as soon as I walked into a store
Oh, did you see
right
them?
after it, I saw them and I was like,
Oh,
motherfucker, they're around here.
well, that's good to know. I should look for those.
I imagine at the movie theater it might be better because you're eating popcorn and it's saltier, and then
Oh, with a plain M&M or a peanut M&M?
peanut M&M, I
Yeah,
imagine. I don't
maybe.
fuck with peanuts at all.
My thing with the movies is I like to have a thing of M&Ms, a thing of Sour Patch Kids, and a thing of popcorn. So I get like a
Oh.
chocolatey, a fruity, and a salty.
How old are you?
31.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm 42, so maybe that's... I feel like Sour Patch Kids are like the next generation down. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, like I don't know any of my friends that are like, let's fuck with Sour Patch Kids, you know what I mean? Like,
Are they like Mike and Ike's and like dots and stuff
well,
like that?
so this is the thing. All my friends that are a little bit older, they're mostly in Australia. So like they would fuck with things like maybe like Kit Kats or
Oh, I love Kit
Crunchies
Kat.
and so.
That's like my favorite chocolate candy.
like Violet Crumbles, or there's other things in Australia
Okay.
like Milky Ways and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Maltesers, which
Yeah.
you guys have Whoppers here, but they're not the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
Maltesers are fucking sick.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you ever go to like maybe like World Market or something like that?
Oh,
and
yeah.
You see Maltesers, pick up some, and then don't chew them, just suck them.
Huh.
And
And it's like a Whopper?
it's kind of like a Whopper, but better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people walking in, they think that you're like hella famous right now.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's like the funny thing about doing something like this in public.
Yeah.
They think you're famous.
Yeah, they think you're
and
better
you're
than what
just
you
a
are.
nobody.
Yeah, just a nobody sitting here. I'm an idiot. This is not even
Put a
turned
microphone
on.
up. You're on a TV
Yeah.
show. What are you filming? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
what are you doing? Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
I can pretend I'm famous. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I'll say.
Get some
I'll just
views
point
for
at
the
this
show,
guy.
you know?
Yeah. All right. What do you do to pay the bills?
So, a lot of things.
Okay.
Similar to Antonio, I'm
Yeah.
just an all-around creative person. So I've done a lot of different creative things. My main thing is photography,
Yeah.
and most of the time I'm doing fashion and portrait photography.
So are you, when you're doing fashion and portrait photography, are you saying that like, hey, I'm going to a modeling show, or like someone is a designer and they're like, hey, I need you to photo shoot these for a catalog or something like that?
A little bit of both. Most of the time, I get hired by actors or models to take pictures of them, like portraits, and
Oh, wow.
create portfolio material for them.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll be asked by a brand to photograph like a lookbook for their collection,
Yep.
or product photography if it's like
So do you
a
have
skincare
all
company.
the lights and everything like that? Like, do you have all like the reflector and like that stuff? Or?
I do have my own lights. I have like a strobe set of lights, and then like a constant light setup. And I have, sorry, I feel like I'm shaking this thing.
No,
Is
you're
that-
good. It doesn't matter. This is like a makeshift thing. Don't sweat it.
Okay. And I have, some other accessories, but I feel like a lot of times I don't need too much gear, and if I need specific things, I'll
Yeah.
just rent them.
Okay.
It's usually the easier way to go.
So my question was for that is, what makes fashion photography different than other sorts of photography? Like, that's why I was like, oh, how does it feel different? Like, what do you bring to the table that makes it different?
Well, early on, I kind of thought of fashion photography as just like taking pretty pictures, and there's a pretty person, and you get like a really beautiful setup, and the light's pretty, and it's just like all about beauty. That was kind of like my very first impression, and then as I started to grow into it, I realized it's really about the product, and it's a lot less about the person. Although, because I am more of like a portrait fashion photographer, for me often it is more about the person, because I'm taking pictures of a person for their portfolio. So in that case,
who's the most famous person you've taken a photo of for this?
Oh my gosh,
are you going to say yourself?
No.
Selfie.
I'm trying to think. I worked with this one girl, maybe she's the most famous. There's two that come to mind. One is Miss Universe from like 2015 or something. Her name is Pia Wurtzbach.
Oh, wow.
And when she was crowned the winner, the host of the show accidentally crowned the wrong person.
Oh, yeah.
So there was
it Steve Harvey?
This huge, like, embarrassing thing where he crowned the wrong girl, and then he had to, like, take the crown off of her and put it on the right girl.
Yeah.
And the one that actually won is the girl that I photographed.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty fun. The other person that comes to mind who's maybe more current, like right now, is this one TikTok beauty influencer. Her name's Meredith Duxbury.
Meredith Duxbury?
Meredith Duxbury.
Duxbury.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And she's just really big in the TikTok scene. She does like makeup tutorials and is big into fashion and all this stuff. And
so how'd you get
it's kind of fun
into the fashion side of photography? Like, I think there's a lot of people that do, like, I grew up skateboarding, so I know a lot of skateboard photographers that just love like filming and taking photos of really good photography. Actually, the first interview I did for this podcast ever was a guy named Tommy in Australia, and he's a skate photographer. Brilliant photographer.
Yeah.
So he grew up skateboarding, right? So he's like, oh, what's the evolution into that? And then he's like, oh, I might do photography or something creative.
Yeah.
For you,
how did it evolve?
How did it evolve into that? Like, were you creating garments or anything like that when you were growing up, or? A
little bit, actually. Yeah. So I was mentioning earlier that I've always had an interest in fashion, and it started at a really young age. Mainly, I think, I don't know, like I was really into pop culture and like red carpets, and when we'd watch the Oscars, I was really fascinated by like the red carpet.
At what age is this?
This is like young, like probably like between 8 and 10.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's early on to sort of find that vibe, you know?
Yeah. And then at a certain point, like I had a friend whose mom was really good at sewing and weaving. And so my friend naturally was like into doing some of that stuff too. And then we all kind of worked on like learning how to sew together, which was fun.
Cool.
So I did.
I used to sew as well when I was a kid.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
It is really, really fun. It's such a cool skill to have, but I completely like that was such a long time ago. I don't know if I
don't know how to do
pick
it
up
either.
Again, but
I do have a funny sewing story though. Let me interrupt there. I was one time in high school, and we all were doing like home ec or whatever you guys call it here, and we were all sewing, and I was like, they were like, the scissors are really sharp, be careful. But we had all the sewing machines around. I was like, I wonder if this could cut through the cord.
Oh, gosh.
I went kaboom through the cord, big loud white explosion. The scissors flip up, stab back into a desk, and the teacher comes out, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I was just cutting my material, like fully lying through my teeth, and I like must have cut through that. The principal calls up my mum, like, is he okay? Like all this, and it was just a full lie, because I was like, let me cut through this.
Cutting it.
Yeah.
Oh my
like
God.
Dumbest thing ever. Could have hurt someone else. Luckily, everything was fine. But so you and your friends
that is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like early on, and then I kind of thought early on that I would go into like fashion design and stuff. My cousin is. She was really into fashion too, and went to FIT, and like I don't know, maybe was part of that inspiration. But do
you fuck with Project Runway?
I loved Project Runway.
Oh, I love
Project. So fun to watch.
Yeah,
and there's a new show too called
I'm Making the Cut.
No, it's a Netflix show called Next in Fashion.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's kind of like Project
Yeah,
Runway.
is it good?
It's really fun.
Oh, is it? Oh,
the
cool.
second season, I think, is the only one that I saw, but I liked it a lot.
Oh,
and the guy
cool.
that won was super cool, really
Yeah.
creative.
The guy
So-
who won Project Runway All-Stars, which just aired, like Bishmi.
Sounds familiar,
Yeah.
but I
But
don't-
anyway, I probably watched every season, mainly because my wife's really into it, but I just get so involved because they're so creative
Yeah.
so quickly, right?
Yeah. And it's like the stress of having to make it in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I didn't
and
think
so
I could
much
do it.
Drama.
Yeah. This one was less drama based, but more like about the fashion and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
that's nice.
Anyway, so your cousin
So-
was into it, and then that sort of helped
and I
fuel
kind of
yours.
thought maybe that's the direction I would go, but as I got older, I kind of realized I didn't necessarily want to be a designer and have to like make clothing. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be involved in some way.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I was in high school, we had, for our senior projects at the end of our senior year,
Yep.
we had like a month and a half or something to do whatever we wanted, basically. And
wow.
we didn't have normal classes at that point. It was just like you just get all that time to do a project. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I grew up doing art, drawing and painting and whatnot,
Yep.
so I kind of thought maybe I'll do some big like drawing project or
Yep.
but that, I don't know, I just didn't really have like a clear idea.
Yeah.
And then
Well, it's hard for
two-
any teenager. Like, I look at some teenagers and they're like, got their whole act together. I'm like, what the fuck? I was
know.
like jacking off and skateboarding and going surfing. Like, I had nothing else to sort of, I would draw, and that was like,
Yeah.
oh man, I did a drawing of
yeah,
a
and then
Smurf
there's kids
surfing.
that have like their own businesses and they're like doing the thing and
Yeah.
you're just like, props to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I would say I was like halfway there. Like I was
Yeah.
pretty motivated, but not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that with it.
Yeah.
But two of my friends decided that they wanted to do a magazine for their senior
Oh,
project.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool. Like I had been doing photography classes here and there in
Yep.
high school, and I thought maybe I would join them on this project and like be their photographer, and they would do all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was the plan. But then, like maybe like a week or two into it, they got in trouble and they could no longer do the project. That was like their punishment, was they couldn't do the senior project anymore.
Hey, what did they get in trouble for that would stop
They
that?
were drinking and
Oh,
you
okay,
know.
whatever.
And I was at a private school, so it was sort
Oh,
of like
okay,
but yeah. So at that point, we had already started,
Yeah.
and I was kind of like, well, I want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like I maybe I'll just keep doing it, but I'll just do everything at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
we'll
I'll
just
take
go
on
for
everything.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was doing the photos, planning the shoots, styling the shoots, picking the people to be the models, which is just friends and
Yeah,
stuff at
yeah,
that
yeah.
point. Doing the layouts, editing the photos, writing all the articles, printing it, like from top to bottom. I was doing the whole process.
That's sort of like a self-imposed sort of like boot camp for like
Yeah.
this stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And so by the end of it, I was like, wow, that was actually really fun.
Yeah.
And I could see myself doing this as like a job. Whereas
Yeah.
with art, I didn't know what kind of a career I would have with that. It's like, you just never know.
I love drawing so much, and when I was a kid, people would say to me, "You're never going to make a living doing that." Mind you, I have not made a living doing that, but so they're right so far. I'm hoping to prove them wrong, but it's crazy where you like, if you
Yeah.
don't feel like there's an avenue to go, you sort
Yeah.
of have to like
Pivot a
find a
little
way.
bit.
Like I became a web designer after that. But anyway, so continue. So you didn't know.
Yeah. So I thought maybe that would be like a more approachable path to take.
Yep.
And I could like see that a little more clearly. So I went home. My school was not in Washington; it was in St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
So I went home for summer break and like approached some.
So
of the,
you were away for school.
yeah, just for the last 2 years of high school.
Okay.
I started here and then I switched to that.
Okay.
Just my parents actually went to the same school and they
Oh,
had
okay.
recommended it, and I was
Yeah.
always like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to leave home.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I was just like, actually, that sounds kind of cool. And then I kind of flipped a switch and decided
Oh, wow.
to go, which was great.
Yeah, yeah.
And so on my school breaks, I would come back to Seattle, and I approached Seattle Models Guild first.
Okay.
I knew somebody that worked there. I had a connection to them, and went in, met with them, and they set me up with some of their brand new models to just like get creative with taking photos, and it was just
Yeah.
sort of like a win-win. Like I was
Yeah.
getting experience, they
They're
were getting
getting free
photos,
photos, yeah.
and we kind of just like had this
Yeah.
nice working
I
relationship.
love that sort of hustle.
Yeah, and so that's how it started, and then slowly I started to do more and more, and then people would reach out to me to take their photos,
Yep.
and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. So, at what point do you then have to make that decision? I'm going to start charging people,
Yeah.
right? Like, because at some point you have to be like, I'm doing this for free, I'm doing this for free, and then like, there's that weird grey area, right, where people are like, well, come take these photos, and you're like, well, you got to pay me because I need to pay bills or I need to do this
Yeah.
or.
I think that I'm trying to remember how or when that switch happened, but I feel like it might have actually been prompted by the modeling agencies. Like at a certain point, once they saw that I had enough experience, they kind of were like, okay, well, now that you've been doing this for a while, like we'd love to start recommending our new faces to like book you for shoots.
That's
for
cool.
when they need a portfolio.
Oh wow!
And, like,
so they
and
weren't
here's
trying
what
to
we
be like,
expect
hey,
you to
we
do
got
for
this
them.
person on the side. Let's keep not paying him.
Yeah, no, I think they wanted me to succeed, and they wanted me to also, like when I'm doing it for free, I'm kind of just doing whatever I want.
Yeah.
But if
so when they start,
have like a particular, like this is kind of what we want our models to have in their portfolios, like can you do these sort of set types of images? That's sort of when it became more of like a business type of a thing.
When you are doing these, when you get your school photos and you have like a headshot, you have the group shot or whatever it is like that, is that the sort of thing like the modeling agency goes, hey, here's the checklist that we need and we need you to get these ones, and like the standard, oh, here's a crop shot, here's a landscape, here's a portrait, here's a artistic one, avant-garde one, like do they say, hey, do these 5 shots or whatever?
I would say it's it's less rigid than that. Like they're not so specific, but they will say like, we really want a great headshot. We want full body shots where we can see the person's figure and how they move.
Yeah.
We want like energy, a range of expressions, and we want to showcase like a few different types of fashion looks. Like maybe one is more of a formal wear, one is like a beachy swimwear kind of a look, one is like a commercial lifestyle, like REI fitness, something like that, And so you're trying to basically get this person as much, at least on the West Coast in the Northwest.
Yeah.
They want to see as much range as possible because we have such a commercial market up here.
Okay.
If you were doing this in New York, it might be different because they're totally have like a totally different mindset on like what they want their models to be.
Have you ever traveled
like.
over there to like shoot or anything like that?
Yeah, so I actually lived in Boston for 4 years and then was in a grad program for photography in New York for a year after that.
Oh, wow.
And so while I was in Boston, I would often travel down to New York on the weekends and like do shoots and connect with people.
So close,
and stuff.
right?
It's super close.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, for the Australians, they might think it's really close, like 15 minutes, but it's like...
It's like 3.5, 4 hours, or maybe like 4 to 4.5 hours.
Yeah. So like a train ride down to there, right, is what you do.
I had a car in Boston, so sometimes I would drive down.
Yeah.
But other times I would just take a bus or something like that.
Yeah.
So I did do a lot of shoots in New York. Most of the time it was like me trying to work with as many interesting new faces as I could to like beef up my portfolio. Other times it was like someone would reach out to me to take their pictures and I would do a session with them.
Is your portfolio mainly online? Like, is that
mainly online?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't have much of any print portfolio, and I don't think most people do it. When I have printed out my photos and I've seen them on a piece of really nice paper, it's so beautiful. Like it really captures it or just shows it so much better than like a digital screen would.
Do you film or digital?
I have always pretty much been digital. I learned on digital. I never learned film when I was growing up. But more recently, within the last like 2 to 3 years, I've been more interested in film and have been trying to learn more of it and have a couple of film cameras.
They don't have, and they might do. I'm surprised they don't have a camera that does digital and film at the same time. So then you can be like, oh, hey, we cranked out the film, but I've still got the digital.
That'd be a really interesting concept. I wonder if you could. It would probably be like a big, huge contraption because they're trying to combine both things. But I know that there's sort of a version of that where it's like a film camera that has a digital back, so you can like see a screen, but it's a film camera.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the closest thing to that. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you should market that. You can have
Yeah.
that idea. That's yours.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll workshop it. That'll be my $1 million idea.
Yeah, well,
I
hopefully
won't
more
get
than a
famous
million.
for photography. I'll get famous for the
Yeah, that's
film
yeah.
digital camera.
Kodak will come to you for this idea.
Ooh, okay.
What sort of cameras do you use?
I use Canon cameras.
Yeah.
I have
Are they an industry standard or just like you love them?
Canon and Nikon are both industry standard, and there's plenty of other ones like Sony, the one that you have.
Yeah. Well, this is
they
just
have-
like the one that I googled that someone said, oh,
For,
this
like,
is a great
vlogging or something,
vlogging
yeah.
camera, and I was like, I actually think, to be honest, I think my phone does a better job than this does. It just
I feel
fills
like
up
I
my
might
phone.
have one like that. I have a small point and shoot as well.
Yeah.
Actually, no, mine's Canon.
Oh,
But
yeah.
It looks really similar.
Yeah, I think a lot of these
But-
ones do.
Yeah.
So, but it does its job.
The camera that I have is like a professional level, like
Yeah.
top of the line. I have the Canon R5, and it's mirrorless, so
Yeah.
that's kind of a nice new change. I was always using the mirror
Yeah.
cameras before.
And that's more like on the back of the lens, right? Like the mirror
it's
that.
inside.
Yeah.
So with the mirror cameras, if you take a picture, it'll like smack the mirror down and
Yeah.
make a really loud noise.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
The mirrorless, it's all digital on the sensor.
Yeah.
And so it's very quiet. You can go super fast. And yeah, it's
So does that
very
give you
different
more?
experience.
Does that give him more control on like the lens speed and stuff like that, where you can be like, oh, I want this to have a bit of a blur effect, or I want this to like catch the light differently, so you can like.
I think
the shutter
you could
speed,
probably do that pretty much the same with both
Okay.
types of cameras. I
Yeah.
know there's certain things that like the new mirrorless cameras can do that the other ones can't.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fast and it's very lightweight. So there's like functional things about it that
Yeah.
are better, or maybe not better, but just different.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm also not like a huge gear person. I'm not super techie with
Oh,
everything,
yeah.
so I'm definitely
That was
more
gonna be
about
one of
like
my
the look
questions.
and the feel of things. Like
Yeah.
for me, usually the way that I describe something is like I want it to look like this.
Yeah.
And then someone would have to kind of be like, oh, then do this. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Or use this lens or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe now I've gotten to a point where I understand the gear
Yeah.
that's going to get me to those places better.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I first started, I was like, I want to get the background of the picture blurry.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
And the person had to be like, that's aperture. Like, that's a technical thing that some lenses have and some cameras have and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
I was just like, what? How
Yeah.
does that? Like, I just want it to be blurry in the background.
Yeah, yeah. Why does this need to be a big deal?
Yeah.
It's funny because I see some people with their like cameras, and like when I was researching this, some of these cameras were like $2,000, like, and that wasn't even like that crazy of a camera.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man,
They're so expensive.
I don't know. So how did you fund starting out?
Let's see, in high school, got a camera for my birthday that was
Yeah.
like it was a DSLR, but it
Yeah.
was a Nikon, and it was just sort of like a kit camera that you
Yep,
could
yep.
get from Costco that like
Yep.
came with a different lens, and it was
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
like,
I
I
had
don't know,
one
maybe
of
a few
those as
$100,
well.
but like nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And then as I got into college and I became more serious about photography,
Yeah.
I think I would, like from the shoots that I was doing and I was making money doing
Yeah.
that, I would put that towards the gear that I wanted to buy.
Yep.
And just kind of get things slowly. And then also like gifts from parents for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Christmas or things. I would ask
Yeah.
for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the same with me with sort of like this kind of gear. I'm like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
I really want new mic stands, and I don't want to really like pay for them, but I don't
Yeah.
need anything for my birthday or anything.
Right.
So I'll just like, yeah, get me some mic stands.
Yeah.
Like, so
Or the most recent camera, the R5 that I have, I bought that in maybe 2021.
yeah,
And I knew that I wanted to switch to this, and
Yeah.
I had so I was living on the East Coast, but I would come back for the holidays and whatnot.
yeah,
And at that point, because COVID was still kind of like a big thing, I ended up staying for the holidays for like maybe a month and a half or so.
Yeah.
And while I was here, I let people in the area know that I was back, and I was trying to book as many like portfolio shoots and headshot sessions
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
as I could.
Are you well known in the industry, like around here and stuff, where people like
I
you
would
put the word
say-
out and people are like, oh shit, Andrew's here, let's get some shots.
I would say locally,
Yeah.
yes, because not that many people are doing fashion photography.
Yeah.
A lot
Oh,
of people
wow.
are doing like portrait and wedding and
Yeah,
sports
yeah.
and like lifestyle type stuff,
Yeah.
but not very many people do like fashion photography.
Wow. See, I thought there would have been like obviously wedding because I feel like that's people's bread and butter.
Yeah.
But I thought fashion would have been pretty high up there, like skateboarding.
Oh, interesting.
Because like
Yeah.
skateboarding, like for some skateboard photographer or filmer, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
like every skateboarder knows one or has one.
Yeah.
Where I imagine that every fashion person who's in fashion is like, oh yeah, there's another photographer, and get him in here, sure. You know what I mean? But that's interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
here, I mean, we're not such a huge fashion market up in the Northwest.
Yeah.
Like, LA is obviously way more of a fashion market, and
Yeah.
New York, of course, but here it's a much smaller pool.
What
and
makes
there's
you stay
less
here?
Clients. Just the place, really. Like,
Oh, wow.
I love living here.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived on the East Coast for a while. I got a sense of what it would be like to live in Boston. I
Yeah.
lived in New York for a year, and I just, like, it was not for me. I got the feeling of just like, this is not home. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then when I'd come back, I'd be like, oh, I just love it so much. Like, it's so beautiful. It's so easy. It's
Yeah.
just like where I want to be.
Yeah.
All my family's here.
Yeah.
And just the place, like, I think the beauty of the city and the Northwest in general is like what really speaks to my soul. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so that to me is like more important than just like being in a specific location
Yeah.
for, the types of jobs. Like, it's a bummer because it's like, okay, well, if I want to do that, then I'm essentially just giving up on like a certain lifestyle or a
Yeah.
certain type of career
Yeah.
within the fashion world. But then I kind of came to realize like, well, I don't really care enough about it to make that my end all.
Yeah.
So
like your overall well-being is worth more
Yeah.
than like putting yourself in a square peg in a round hole and maybe like being in LA for like and
Right.
doing that vibe for
Right. And I would obviously always want to like visit and be there to do jobs or things here and
Yeah.
there, but like living there, I just couldn't see myself doing that, and I just felt like, I don't know, like I'd rather be in a place that I loved and do work that wasn't necessarily as interesting or as high profile or something,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
be like in a place of comfort and home and whatever.
Yeah.
Or just, forget the other stuff. Like find a different
Yeah.
job if I needed to, you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting like realization that I had within the last maybe 5 years or so
Oh, wow.
of like where my career could end up, because
Yeah,
I was obviously in New York and like in that whole world, and it was like, well, I could stay
Yeah.
after this grad program I did. I was like, I could stay in New York and keep doing this
Yeah.
and figure out how to live here,
Yeah.
or I could just go back to Seattle. And if I wanted to eventually go back to Seattle, I was like, why prolong moving back
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stay in New York longer and like try like I felt like I needed to just be very decisive after my
Yeah.
program ended to be like, do I want to live here or not? And if I
Yeah.
don't, then I'm not going to prolong it. I'm just going to move back and start my Seattle life again.
Yeah, yeah.
know?
Do your
So that's-
parents love you being a fashion photographer?
I think
Only
that
when
they,
the Christmas cards come out?
yeah, they like when I take pictures of like family and events and stuff. I think they are happy for whatever I would want to do. Like I've always been
awesome.
a creative, artistic person,
Yeah.
and they have and I should say that my mom's family is all very artistic too. So like maybe it's not as much of a shock
Yeah, yeah,
as like
yeah.
someone who has no artistic sense in their family
Yeah.
already, and then they have a kid that wants to be an artist, and you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is not a good path.
Yeah, yeah.
I think for us it was sort of like we had people in our family that were doing that kind of stuff, so it wasn't really a shock, but also they have sort of a business sense to it where they're like, well, how can you do this and like actually make a living? So they're always
Yeah.
trying to like help with suggestions of like, maybe try this, maybe try that, which is sometimes nice, sometimes you're like,
yeah.
you don't really know what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it can just feel
They're
like,
like, start an Instagram account. And you're like, yeah. I got that,
we're there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think generally they're just supportive, and that's been
awesome.
great.
Which movie do you think you've seen the most?
Seen the most. I would say maybe one of the James Bond, like Casino Royale movies. I love those movies.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe one of the Batman movies, like The Dark Knight.
The Dark
I
Knight
love
ones
those
are
movies.
so good. And when James Craig and they changed up how they do the 007 movies, I was like, this is, I'm
They're so
in.
good.
Before that, I was like, these are fucking boring. Like, I couldn't stand them. But now I'm more like James Craig, like, give me more
Yeah.
Bond like that. Yeah.
I know. And they're so just like, he's just so cool. You
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
you just love to like watch his life.
Yeah,
You know?
you just. I will say some of them like, I just walk in on a shower with a woman and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm like, all right, that seems a bit off, but
Yeah.
they seem to both into it. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
The movies are funny that way.
Yeah, I just went and saw Expandables 4. No, Expandables.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember what
What's
it's
the
called.
word?
Expendables?
Expendables. That's it.
Okay.
Expendables. So it's like Sylvester Stallone and all like these old action hero movies, like
Yeah.
and it was just like so like hitting every beat that they were meant to hit, and I was like, I just wanted a little twist. I wanted like
Yeah.
something. They tried to put a twist in there, but everyone, like, we've all seen every movie they've done. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh no, that's not. I called it like really early on, but anyway, it was fun to be in there and like their whole action sort of stuff. It was fun. But
Yeah. At this point, there's been so many superhero movies,
Yeah.
and they're all kind of the same, and they're
Yeah.
all just like trying to one up each other, and the CGI is getting so intense and
Yeah.
so over the top. It's just
Yeah.
like, I think people are starting to get kind of tired of it, and they're
Yeah.
looking for something that's like humorous or different, or
Yeah, yeah.
like they don't even really. I don't think people care that much about the CGI stuff that makes it like hyper realistic and
Yeah.
like a new world. Like I think people want it to be
I think they just
authentic
got
and just have a
burnt
good
out so
script.
far.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like these movies just don't have good scripts anymore.
Do you ever watch any of the Kevin Smith stuff? Oh really? Like Mallrats or Chasing Amy?
I don't think so.
You should watch Mallrats or Chasing Amy.
Okay.
And it's really amazing. Like it just sees like the way his dialogue is and all that sort of stuff. Chasing Amy for sure. But that's what I sort of miss, those sort of movies. And there was not. It was some of them were like drama based, but it was just like this humorous dialogue. Especially Mallrats just had this like silly storyline going through it, but it was just the way they interacted. Like it was incredible. But
Yeah.
anyway, if you ever watch those.
I'll check that out.
Hey.
Mallrats.
Yeah,
It's a fun title.
I'll text you so then you remember.
Yeah.
Outside of work, what do you wish you did more of?
That's a good question. Well, here specifically in Seattle, I wish I hiked more.
Fuck you and your hiking. Every Seattle person is like, I wish I hiked more. Like, yeah, okay, I get it.
You don't like it?
Yeah, it's like hiking great. It's like once you get to the spot, it's beautiful. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I'd much rather like skate or play pickleball
Okay.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I love playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Like, but
So
anyway.
growing up here, I mean, I grew up in Kirkland, like
Yeah.
in a suburb of Seattle, and so I never really was like a Seattle kid.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
as I got older and I realized like what the kind of culture of a Seattleite is
Yeah.
and what the culture of like a suburb kid is,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm not a Seattle kid.
Yeah.
Like there's a clear distinction.
Yeah.
And so growing up in the suburbs, like all you kind of did was go to the mall, hang out with your friends, like go to movies, normal stuff, like play
Yeah, yeah,
sports.
yeah.
And we rarely would go like camping or do cool Northwesty things. So then when I was an adult, I was like, I haven't even been to Mount Rainier, you know, like which is
Oh, wow.
a huge thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I went when I was a tiny little kid.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That was
back
so
when
long
your parents
ago.
were like, "Oh, let's go show the kid that," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, he's 7. Let's get out of this."
Yeah, or the Olympic Peninsula. Like I
Oh, yeah.
had never really explored there.
Yeah.
I'd never really done any cool scenic things, and there's so much of it here. So
There is a lot
when
of
I
cool
started
stuff
to like
here.
realize how much I was sort of missing out on, I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
I don't know this state hardly at all."
Yeah, yeah.
And I love just like beautiful nature, natural surroundings, and
Yeah,
things. So
yeah,
like for
me
me,
too.
that's more the draw. Like the hiking is whatever. I like to.
If I could drive to that, like
Yeah.
especially, so I have a Tesla, and like, so I don't feel guilty about driving and having the like gas burning. But
Yeah.
if I drive out to there and I'm like, oh, I can go and see this beautiful view from the drive, and I was like, oh, maybe it's a small walk.
And there are a lot of those.
yeah,
Like one of my favorite places, Diablo Lake. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And it's like 3 hours away, so it's kind of a drive.
Is it like
but you
near,
go
like,
like
Lake
towards the
Quinault or anything like that?
Cascades, not towards the Olympic Peninsula. It's
Okay.
out east.
Oh, okay.
And you basically like get to a point where you're driving around Lake Diablo, and then you go like up this huge, like the side of a mountain, and there's an overlook, so you can like look down straight onto it, and it's like this beautiful scene. You just get out of your car and look, and it's right there. And then the lake itself is that icy blue, like really kind of like misty water color that's just like so stunning.
Yeah.
Either when it's like cloudy or sunny, it's like beautiful no matter what the weather is. So that's a really fun spot to go, just to drive up to, and you're there.
So how far away is that?
I think it's like 3 hours away. It's
Okay,
kind of a
next time
drive.
I'm out that way,
but,
then I'm gonna go.
But the whole drive there is beautiful too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
I have a place out in Suncadia, and so it's beautiful out there. And the drive out there, it's so different than what I'm used to. Like, I grew up on the beaches, and I'm such a beach snob. When people say I'm going to the beach, I'm like, are you though?
Yeah.
Are you? Like,
we don't have those beaches.
No. And I'm such a bit like, but people around here love them. Like they'll go to like Cannon Beach, or they'll go out to the wherever it is. I don't even care, ocean shores or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is great, but it's freezing cold when you go in the water. Why am I even excited?
Yeah.
So, but like growing up around there, but even when I drive over down 85th, coming down into Kirkland, and I see the like Olympic Peninsula out there, sometimes I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, like if younger Matt knew that was his view, his mind would be blown. So I sometimes have to pull back and think of that stuff.
That's one of my favorite things, what you just described, coming down 85th and seeing the tops of those mountains. Like with the lake in the background. That's like one of my favorite
Me too.
views.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It feels like you're getting to see, it sounds weird, but a little bit of like magic, you know, like not like sounds so corny saying that. Yeah, like you weren't expecting it, like, and then you're like, oh wow, there is these beautiful mountains, snow-capped.
Yeah, I'm just driving home from work, or like
exactly,
you know, whatever. And
I
it's
used
just
to
peeking through.
get a train from this place called Fremantle to Perth, and I'd going up to work, and I would drive. The train goes over this the water, and I would see dolphins there every once in a while. Like it was pretty often, but I would always just get so stoked. And I remember thinking back then, I was like, this is special that I get to be on a train. I'm looking out at the ocean, and then there's dolphins there.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was wild. And then like I think of that stuff now when I'm like bummed out. I'm like, there is this like magical stuff that's going on. So speaking of animals, when you visit the zoo, what animal are you most excited to see?
I haven't visited a zoo in a really long time, but I feel like it would either be like a bear or a lion, like something really big and furry. I'm kind of fascinated by lions. Like that, there's that video of the guy who like became friends with a lion when it was a cub, and then he gets older, and then he like comes back, and the lion still knows him, and he's like hugging him. Secretly, that is my dream.
Oh
like
my gosh.
I want a lion to just like hug me to death.
You just want it to be like, hey, like you just want to have a connection where it's like, I'm not going to eat you, but we need a hug.
Yeah.
We want to hug it out.
And it's so furry and just like beautiful and regal. I love lions.
Yeah.
Bears are also super cool, but both of which could probably rip you apart.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I really fully internalized that.
Have you seen The Reverend, where he gets like shaken by bear? I'm like...
Oh my gosh, that movie was so hard to watch.
It was so hard to watch.
It was like good,
sitting,
but it was like
so
really
good.
painful.
Yeah, it was like sitting on like where you're like sitting on nails or something like that, but you're just quite uncomfortable, but you can't sit comfortably. Yeah.
It was a really amazing movie.
It was, yeah.
I also saw that movie when I was visiting Utah, and I was it was Utah in the winter, and it was like kind of in a more rural area. So I exited the movie theater, and it was like snowy, and there's these hills, and it was sort of just like this wild landscape around us.
You're like looking around the corners, like, is there a bear?
Am I here in the movie right now? This is wild. Like it was kind of the perfect setting to see it in.
That is great. Yeah, imagine if you could like, I need to fly here to watch this movie, so I could have that vibe.
That'd be cool. Yeah. So you could live the experience.
Yeah.
But not actually get mauled by a bear.
Yeah. Without the mauling in the bear. Just a cuddle. Just a cuddle. What trait of yours are you most proud of?
Trait. I would say I'm pretty industrious.
Industrious. What do you mean by that?
So I'm just a worker when it comes to like getting something done. Like I'm if I'm passionate about something, I will like be head down, really going for it. Like I'll see it through to the end, and I'll just like boom, 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 get it done. And
Yeah.
I've done a whole bunch of different jobs over the years. Some of which are more about the industrious kind of quality, and then others maybe not so much, like editing photos, but like in a different way.
Yeah.
But more recently, I have also been a cook. I cooked for this summer camp that I grew up going to as a kid, as like the main head cook. And
Oh, wow.
that's a job where it's like you really need to be industrious and like just a really hard worker. And I like to
Did you get that from your parents or from like the stuff you've been through? Like where you're like, oh man, I like my friends bailed on me because they got boozed up and I had to do the magazine myself. Then I'm like a cook at this camp, and now I have to feed 400 kids like one patty each.
Yeah. I
Like,
feel like it just more comes internally. Like I think I'm just really self-motivated when it comes to things that I'm passionate about. And if I'm really interested in something, I will just like go for it gung-ho. I'll like put everything I have into it because it's like lighting me up, and it's sparking an inspiration somewhere.
Do you get distracted at all? Like where you're like,
Yes. Well, and certain things too. Like I love taking photos. I love being in the moment, like doing a shoot with somebody, like connecting on that level. And then when it comes time to actually editing, that's like the part that just like kills me, because you're like, sitting at a TV or a screen for hours. And so I get really distracted when it comes to like the back end side of things sometimes. But
what do you do to like stay focused, stay on task?
I put a lot of pressure on myself. I'm like, this person is expecting you to get these photos back at this day. You need to do, like, I will just make myself feel terrible to make sure that I don't mess up. And it's more just like making sure that I'm, like it doesn't matter what I want. It's like, what are they wanting? Like they paid you to do this, or, they're expecting something from you. So like you need to make sure you don't like fail them, basically.
So what do you do when there's not the pressure of someone else and it's just for you?
When it's just for me, sometimes, if it's inspiring me and if it's like giving me some kind of like creative burst of some inspiration, then it's like really easy for me to just go and do it all. But if it's something that I did that I end up not liking, or it just didn't go the way I thought it would, then sometimes it's really hard to force myself to like finish that project. And it's not often that happens. Like most of the time, even if I don't love it in the end, like I'll still get it done in a timely manner. But there's been times when it's just like it's not worth it.
Sometimes like when I'll be in the middle of a drawing and I'll be like, why am I doing this drawing? And I'm like, I'll just finish it out. Like I'm not starting another drawing at this time at night or whatever. I'll just finish it. I sort of feel you on that.
But it is hard. You kind of sometimes you have to force yourself. And then other times you're just like, is it worth it? Do I need to do this? No. Like, why kill myself?
I feel you on that for sure. What is your comfort food?
Comfort food. 2 different types.
Okay.
I would say desserts. Comfort food is like a brownie sundae, a warm brownie and ice cream, or like a warm chocolate chip cookie. Like that is so.
Do you know what? Here's something.
My comfort food.
So in Australia, when I was growing up, they'd have these things called. Have you had Chips Ahoy?
Yeah.
Right. They're crunchy. They're hard. It's like you break a tooth and you're like, oh no. Right. Terrible. Right. So that's what we grew up in Australia having.
Okay.
Subway came to Australia, and then
those are good.
The cookies were still made the same way as Americans made them.
Okay.
And we would call them American cookies because they're so soft. And so you'd go get a Subway sandwich and you'd be like, all right, give me 5 cookies as well. Like, because you're just like, these are the best. You'd go in there just to get the cookies.
Yeah.
So then I married an American wife, but we just thought they were Subway cookies, right?
Okay.
We get, so I think I said American cookies, but we thought they were just Subway cookies.
Yeah.
I marry an American wife. She starts making cookies for my friends. Like, oh yeah, I'll make cookies and I'll do this. And we were all like, what the fuck? You can make these where they're not concrete?
Oh,
we
interesting. So people don't like bake cookies like that?
I don't know, but we would just all eat them like hard as shit. I don't know if we were trying to toughen ourselves up or like, gotta fight a crocodile and have a hard cookie. Like, I don't know what it was. But we were just all over the moon. And so all my mates would be like, oh, is Jillian going to make cookies today, or is she going to make this dessert? Because it would be like very American, very like made a different way. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I will say it was Subway specifically.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I would look at the cookie and like there's a little, like box with the cookies in them. And I'd be like, that just doesn't look very good. It looks kind of sad. But one day I was like, I'll try it. And I got a chocolate chip cookie and my mind was blown.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is 20 times better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, it's not amazing, but I was like, the Subway cookie's pretty darn good. And it's like kind of a secret.
Have you had the cow chip cookies? Like the...
Yeah, those are good.
God.
Or like Mrs. Fields is another one of those kind of places.
Me.
I used
Mrs.
to love
Fields.
the little nibblers, the miniature ones. Those are so good.
I'd give a hand job right
Pop
now
them back.
if I get some of that in right now.
They're
Fire one
so
out
good.
So good.
But I do prefer making my own, just like Toll House chocolate chip cookies. They're always so much better.
So good at home making chocolate chip cookies.
So maybe cookies. That's my comfort food.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would say
even cookie dough.
chicken
Like,
and
I'll
mashed
fucking just
potatoes.
cook
Oh yeah, cookie dough. Oh my gosh.
Did you say chicken and mashed potatoes?
Yeah, like some kind of
Mashed potatoes.
homemade meal like that.
Do you know what I do with mashed potatoes? I chop up raw onion, and dice it up so it's in cubes. Mix it into the mashed potato, and it's like the mash and the crunch and the sweet of the.
Yeah.
So good.
Sounds
My mum
good.
used to do it when I was a kid, and I still
Yeah.
if my wife wants to spoil me, like everyone's like, oh, my wife spoils me with like ribs or whatever. It would literally be bangers, which are sausages, and mashed potato with gravy and onion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the best meal ever. Yes! Like it's so nostalgic for me.
Yeah. Well, I used to eat that too. Growing up, I'd eat hot dogs and potatoes. I mean, hot dogs and sausages are totally different.
Totally different.
I understand.
So when my wife when we first moved back here, she was like, "Oh, I'll make you like hot," and I was like, "No, this is just hot dogs."
Yeah, sausages is like the way to go.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But as a kid, I was like hot dogs and like mashed potatoes is my favorite thing.
Ah, so good. Do you do ketchup with your mashed potatoes?
Yeah.
Do you mix it in?
I would like cut it as a kid with the hot dogs. I'd cut them into little slices,
Yeah.
and like have a mashed potato kind of thing going on, and then I would like take a bite of each and dip it in ketchup and like.
So you like your proportions.
I like to
being
eat
like-
everything together.
Yeah, I'd sort of like chop. I guess I'd chop and dip. Yeah, I guess I'd chop and dip, and then I'd like have yeah.
The proportions have to be right. I kind of learned that from my
wife's
grandpa.
the same way. I stole one of her sausages the other night
Uh-huh.
when I was like pretending to eat it. She's like, my
ratios.
ratio was off. I could tell, and I was like, yeah,
It's one way to throw somebody off big time.
yep, definitely is. What is something that you have overcome that you're proud of?
Overcome. Oh. Stage fright?
Stage fright, like peeing in public.
Not peeing in public. Well, actually, no. That's like a whole nother kind of stage fright. That was a different battle.
Yeah.
But no, the stage fright I'm thinking of is like specifically like getting up in front of people and like being vulnerable or trying to be like funny or acting or something like that.
Yeah.
I grew up
Do you-
doing acting and stuff.
In your social media, do you turn the camera around, or is yours all of it about the like photos?
I've started to more recently.
Yeah. I have to be better about that.
But not most of the time. Yeah, like it's about the people that I'm photographing.
Yeah.
But like I've started to do more tutorial type videos and like kind of teaching kind of things.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I did a lot of performances and
Through acting, through school.
through
and stuff?
acting, musicals, all that kind of stuff. And I never really had any problems then.
Yeah.
But then in college, there's this improv comedy team that we had at our school. And I thought, oh, that's so fun, but I could never do that. Like, that's like you on the spot.
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing a script or singing a song, like that can be a little nerve-wracking, but at least it's like I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is like, if I mess up, that's so embarrassing. Like
Yeah.
that was just like the peak of, I don't know, putting you on the spot for me. Like
I
it
fully
just was
agree.
very
I'm
scary.
like, you were pulling words out of my mouth. Like,
Yeah.
I see that stuff. Like I've been to a couple of improv shows, and I was like, I would love to be up there, but I don't know if I've got it. And I'm not like, I don't really get shy of anything. I could do like a nude run through here, and I'd be like, whatever. Like other than being arrested by Americans. And then, But I could do that, and I wouldn't think of anything. Like I wouldn't be embarrassed. But if you were like, hey, you're gonna do an improv up on stage, I'd be like, no, I can't do it.
So that was my big thing. I
Did you
was
go in
too
it?
afraid to do it, and then at a certain point, I was like, you know what? Just try it. And
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what the thought process was where I had that switch, but I did have like a clear moment of like, no, I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being so much fun. Like it was just
God.
basically hanging out with your friends and goofing off and making funny jokes and creating fun scenes. And it actually came super naturally to me to do that kind of comedy, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And
maybe I should go find
really
an improv group.
Yeah, I mean, it can be so much fun just to like have as a hobby, even if it's not about the performance factor for somebody. It's just like really fun to do.
Yeah.
And so like getting on stage and actually doing that kind of a thing like totally cured me of that feeling of,
oh wow.
I mean, I was still a little bit nervous, but like the feeling of like I'm gonna screw it up or I'm gonna mess up, like that just kind of went away.
Do you, with your job, do you have to get up in front and talk to anyone or like pitch people or?
Yeah, I would say like the photographer, especially in like a fashion photography situation where you're working with a client potentially who's asking you to photograph like their fall collection or something like that, like you're sort of seen as the director of that shoot, and people are looking to you to kind of like orchestrate it and like direct the model, give direction on the hair and makeup, like kind of put those pieces together. And so
are you doing research on what they're sort of wanting beforehand, or are you just coming in like going like, fuck it, I know what I'm doing?
I would not have that attitude. Maybe some people do, but I am usually always like, what do you want? Like, how can I create your vision?
Do you do mood boards and stuff like that?
Mood boards, talking it through with the client, making sure that they, tell me what their thought process is and how they want to capture their collection or whatever it is. Yeah. And then as the photographer, you're kind of responsible for being the voice of like the client and explaining to everybody on set, like, this is the vision, this is what we're doing, and like directing people, and people are looking to you for those answers. So like in a way, it's not performing, but it's like you do kind of have to put on like
a leadership,
your big boy pants and be like, I'm in charge here. Yeah. This is what we're doing. So that the people that are working with you have like a captain to like lead them with the project.
This sounds like a really odd question. What do you wear when you go to this stuff?
Well, most of the time photographers wear black. They wear like all black because you don't want your clothes to like reflect light.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, most of the time it's like black jeans or gray jeans and a gray shirt or black shirt or whatever, something pretty boring.
Okay.
But if you're going to like a meeting or something, or if you're going to like an event, it could be totally different. Like especially in the fashion world, it's more about like putting something together that's kind of cool and interesting.
Yeah. So I was wondering how, because you've got a really great smile on you, you've got like a really nice demeanor. And going in, I can imagine there's a lot of egos involved in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
So how do you go in and be a leader in that scenario? You know what I mean? I can imagine a lot of people would dress up, or they might grow facial hair to look a little bit older or whatever. Not that I need it. Mine's looking really old.
I feel like you're hitting on something that I've thought of over the years, is that like I am just a very nice, like easygoing person, and so sometimes that can be looked at as like I can't take you seriously, or you're not really like capable of doing this big job, like But I also feel like, so there's one side of things where people might assume that based on just like coming off a certain way. Yeah. But then once they actually start working with you and they realize like, oh, this person's really smart.
And you're like, this is my boat now.
No.
I'm the captain.
No. Once they realize like, oh, this person's easygoing, they're fun to work with, and they know what they're doing, they're knowledgeable, they're quick, they're responsible, they're capable of doing what we want, then they're like, oh, why wouldn't I want someone like this to run the show? You know what I mean? And so we don't need someone who has a big ego that's like trying to put on this air of like, I'm so cool to make our product seem a certain way. Like we just want to work with someone that's cool and easygoing and fun. Yeah. And
Have you seen the guy that he's at all the red carpets and he does the slow-mo turn around, like he's got really cool hair and so I imagine like when you go to an event, that's how you sort of would like you dress where like you are aware of the fashion, like you sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like so you're like not just going like, oh, I'm in sweatpants like
Right.
Adam Sandler. Like I do great photos, but this is like I'm the background, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Where you got to kind of like set the tone of I'm sort of like here as well.
Yeah.
Like I'm not there, but I'm like here.
Yeah.
And sort of aware
You
of
want
it.
to be relevant to the space that you're in. Like,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to be wearing like the top of the line designer or whatever, but you
Yeah.
want to look like you sort of like blend into whatever you're
Yeah.
doing in the moment. So like
you get any
sometimes
free
even
clothes?
with weddings, no.
What's
I
the-
have never gotten stuff like that.
What's a perk that you get from doing this job, other than like photos and stuff like that, and like feeling you're
Perks.
creative?
I don't know. I mean, I guess like it's just it can be really fun to be
Yeah.
on a set and like creating fun photos for people.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that's the biggest perk. Is just like as a job, those kind of moments can be really cool and
Yeah.
special. Some people probably like do get perks. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
there's photographers that get like gifted really nice things,
Yeah.
or especially like models. You know, sometimes not all the time, but sometimes they'll get like clothing from a shoot or
Yeah.
from a designer. But I don't think I've been in those situations personally as
yeah.
much. But yeah, there's definitely perks.
What are 3 things that you're grateful for?
I am grateful that I have a supportive family.
Yep.
That they're just willing to
Do you
like.
have siblings?
I do. I have a sister.
Your sister?
She's 2 years older.
What does she do? Just out of curiosity.
She does commercial real estate.
Okay.
So she's a broker, and
Yeah.
she's got a big job. She's like
Yeah.
a real job.
Do you make her pay for dinner when she goes out? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean I try and even though I'm not making the same thing, I try and like make it an effort
Yeah.
to like
Like you're like, oh yeah,
make things
I'll
fair.
get this. I'll get this.
Yeah, but sometimes she'll like be like, "Hey, do you want to try this new restaurant in Seattle?" And I'll be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, sure." And then it'll be like this really bougie foodie place, and lunch will be like $45, and I'm like, "Why did we come here for lunch? I was not planning to spend $45 for lunch."
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But
So you're grateful for your
family, supportive family.
Supportive family.
I'm grateful to live in a place that's super beautiful.
Yeah, and all your
that
hiking.
I love all my hiking. And I'm grateful for just really, great, beautiful friendships that I have that I, just have friends that I connect with on a deeper level. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's.
Do you have a big circle of friends, or do you have
I have a pretty big circle of friends
Yeah.
from just like growing up and different things that I've done.
Yeah.
And I feel like as an adult, that's kind of a unique thing. Some people don't necessarily
Yeah.
have a big community of friends, and so I'm very
moving
grateful.
country.
Yeah,
I know
that's
that.
super hard.
Yeah, it's super hard, but like 'cause I was here for a long time, but a lot of my friends and all like that were friends here. We all sort of moved away. We keep in contact a little bit.
Yeah,
But when I moved back to Australia, and all my friends were all around there still, and then they've all got new friends and everything like that, and I was like, man, there is one. I hope my kids get to have that as they grow up, and like
Yeah.
even if they spread out a bit, but then they'll have like a home base instead of
like
like
a community.
yeah.
I know that is really important. I feel like that's like the best memories come from growing up with like a circle of friends, and you're all doing fun
yeah.
things, and it's like.
The amount of dumb stories I have
Yeah.
with me and my mates, and I'm like, we would get together and we're like, remember this? And one person's like, no, I don't remember that. Or they'll tell me, I was like, no, I never did that.
Yeah.
And then we'll just be like, they'll tell a story and I'm like, oh, now I do. And you're like, we're all laughing and be like, dumb stuff. Like,
Yeah.
just remember sitting in the car with your mates and you're just like laughing your asses off of like the dumbest joke.
Yep.
Like, I still have those memories. I'm
I
like,
still do that with some of my friends. Like,
God,
we'll
I
just
still-
be laughing about nothing.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that time.
It's the best.
Yeah, me and my mate were just in Colorado, and he lives in Australia, and I live here, but he works for a place in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went up, met up with him. We were just talking and laughing for 3 days straight. Like, I don't know, like, I don't know if we took a breath, but then we'd be like, hey, I'm going to take a nap. I'd be like, okay. And then we'd both go just take a nap in our room and get up and just keep
I
talking.
need a break.
No,
Okay. Yeah.
no, it'd just be like, we've got nothing else, let's nap. And then we'd go out
Yeah.
for food and whatever. Yeah, it was
fun.
killer. Like, I just love those friendships where it's just easy
Yeah,
going.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. You're almost at the end. You have to wear a shirt with a slogan on it for a year. What does it say?
So I heard this question when I was watching Antonio's,
Yep.
and I don't know, maybe right now in this very moment, that's not the slogan I would pick, but the slogan I picked in my head
Yeah.
right when I heard that question was "Got milk."
Go.
I don't know why, but that was the first thing that came out. I was like, oh, it would be "Got milk." Just like so
Are
random
you a
and
big
weird.
milk drinker?
No, like I'm not even. I mean, as a kid, maybe I was, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I like milk. It's
Yeah.
good, but like I just
love
thought
milk.
like if I had to wear a shirt that said something every day, I feel like I
Yeah,
would
but it's got
want
to
it
be from you.
something-
Like that's just a marketing ploy. Like,
yeah. Okay, so that would be like my graphic tee. Like it's just
okay.
like whatever.
Yeah, you're just being a cool
design
guy.
that's
yeah,
like.
yeah.
If I had to wear a shirt that said something every day, I would pick something stupid like that. If I had to pick a slogan that was meaningful,
Yeah.
that's like really hard. Something meaningful that's
Well,
like
just something more from you. I guess the
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
Milk one does, but
I
what's
mean,
something?
no, that's
No, it's
pretty
not.
lame.
But you're the first person that's answered it like that, though.
Got milk.
Yeah.
Maybe something along the lines of the like Nike "Just Do It," but like if it was like my own version, it would be something a little bit more creative and different.
Yeah.
But like the idea of like just go after it, do what you want to do, like pursue your passion, whatever, like that. I like that
What's it,
concept
push,
of
Did
like
you say push for your passion?
pursue your passion.
Pursue your passion.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe that would be it. Pursue your passion.
Pursue your passion.
New
I like
slogan. I like that.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, something that encapsulates just like going for it, you know, like
Yeah.
not letting stuff hold you back, not listening to any limiting thoughts that
Yeah.
would tell you can't do something, but just
Yeah.
like, why not? You know
Why
what I
not?
mean?
I think the same thing. So one of the things I do for myself, because there's sometimes where I'm like, Matt, are you really going to sit in a coffee shop? Because sometimes I just park up here and like wait for people to rock up, and I just look like an idiot for hours just sitting
Yeah.
here. Which, and I'm like, two things, and I said it in the Antonio one as well, where if you want to do something different, you've got to do something different. So if you get what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm just going to try and say, I want to start a podcast, and I'm not willing to put myself in an uncomfortable situation,
Yeah.
then it's not really going to do anything different, right? But then when I'm like, okay, like you get in your head and like you're in your own bubble, you think everyone's sort of looking at you or whatever, and then I'd go zoom out, right? But zoom out to the universe, and I'm like, I'm on this fucking rock,
Yeah.
spinning around this
It
sun.
does not matter.
And then this is one solar system. Then you zoom out from that, and you're like, oh shit, that solar system doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Like it's so minuscule. So I try and think of that stuff and be like, oh, then
Yeah.
fuck it. All right.
That's a good way to just get outside of yourself.
Yeah, I do that quite a bit to sort of. I've even tried to like. I think at one point in my life, I'm going to get like a picture of the solar system and just put not solar system, the universe, and just find where our solar system is and be like, you're a dot on
Yeah.
here. Like,
You're a nothing.
and nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, I heard somebody say this one time that if you want to make it in something, you have to get past the point of like cringe. I
Yeah.
think that's the way that they described it, where it's like, you're going to have to be cringy and you're going to have to do something that's going to like really put yourself out
Yeah.
there and like just jump into whatever it is that you're trying
Yeah.
to do. Because if you just kind of half-ass it, you're not going to make it.
No.
You have to like really jump in, and you have to just be okay with people being like, that guy's doing
Yeah.
that, like what a you know, like you kind of have to get over the cringe factor to get to the point where you're doing it and people are like, oh, okay, I see you.
Yeah.
You
You know
know?
what's funny? It's like I've got so many supportive people around me, and I don't like any of these people here. If they walked up to me and said anything to me, I'd be like, couldn't care, not one bit. They could rip me to shreds about it. I'd be like, well, whatever, it doesn't bother me. You're
Yeah.
nothing in my life. There's a few friends in my life that are all so supportive, but they're like just unintentionally way cooler than I am. And so I think about the stuff that I do, and they would never, they'd be all supportive. So this
Yeah.
is only in my head.
Yeah.
That I would be like, well, if I do something corny, then they're going to think it's corny. Then like I'm corny.
Yeah.
But they would never think that. And it's just me putting that in their head.
Yeah.
And that plays on me more than
Yeah, like
sitting
your
out here in front of-
own version of what they might think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that,
Isn't that funny?
yeah.
It's a weird, like, mental barrier that you have to get over, but it's all internal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it's like that limiting thought that's like, that would stop you from pursuing
Yeah, and
whatever
honestly-
you're passionate about.
You know, it's funny because it stops me from pursuing turning the camera around on myself. Like, and I'm like, oh man, I feel corny on that.
Yeah.
and they like, I can't stress enough how much they would never say anything or do anything. It's absolutely supportive.
Yeah.
But I feel corny, so I'm like, my friends feel like I'm corny, then I'm corny. So
I've thought about that too recently, and doing more stuff where I'm the focus of whatever content or stuff that I'm making.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel uncomfortable, like, oh, I don't like the way I look in that, or someone's going to think I look stupid or said something stupid. And then I think about how many people are putting stuff on the internet and like they look a certain way, they act a certain way, and people watch it and they don't care. Like they have big followings, or they have like people that are actively listening to them or whatever. And it's like, that's not holding them back. So why would it hold me back? And then I'm like, okay, just get over that then. That's all internal. Yeah. And it doesn't matter.
You are speaking to my soul right now.
Yeah. You just have to be like outside of yourself. You know what I mean? Like put the self aside and just
it's like put the ego aside a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel you on that.
So maybe it's pursue your passions and put the ego aside.
There we go. Pursue your passions.
Like that.
Yeah. Put the ego aside.
I'm going to make a t-shirt.
Yeah. Do you know what? One of the goals is when this thing actually starts making money is that the goal is I would print like 10 shirts.
Ooh, cool.
And then I would give one of the shirts to the people, and then I'd put them up online.
Yeah.
And then like maybe I had the person's...
from the person's
logo.
Show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their slogan.
And then just put it up.
That's fun.
Yeah. Did you say slogan?
Slogan?
Oh, God. Now I'm going to steal that and say slogan. Like the show's slogan.
Oh, slogan.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. Sounds a bit
Wait, what did
penis-like.
you say before?
What?
Oh, was it... What's your catchphrase? That's what you used? Catchphrase?
Yeah,
or what's your... You said, well, what's your
slogan?
Oh, it is slogan.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so
so-
maybe I just said it funny.
Yeah,
slogan.
no, but I was like, slogan. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
Slogan. What?
That's your slogan. That could be like
for the
gimmick
show's slogan.
for the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew. Thank you very much. I feel like I've chewed your ears off enough.
Thank you. That
Did
was
you
really
enjoy your
fun.
time?
I did. I mean, I love talking to people and getting to know new faces. So
I feel you on that. I'm excited to get a drawing. So I have a drawing off to you in a couple of weeks and have the
So
show up, and
fun.
then I'll send you links and stuff that you can do whatever you want with.
Yeah.
Not listen to the show since you don't listen to podcasts.
yeah, whatever.
Oh, whatever. I did this thing. Whatever.
I'm excited to see the drawing. I think that's what I'm most excited about because
I hope people that's what they get excited about. The goal is that as it goes on, then I like start doing. Like if I can then at some point get an editor and I don't have to spend the time doing that, I'm like, oh, what can I do with this drawing?
Yeah.
Like, do I do a season where it's I do all 3D models of the drawing? Do I do a season where it's like I put them into like old pictures or something like that? You know what I mean? Like just start
different
fucking around with
themes.
stuff. Yeah,
that'd be super fun.
yeah. There's so many ideas I have. This is just all the base starting of it.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah, cool.
Well, nice
Thank
to
you
meet
very
you.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
lovely to meet you,
Appreciate
and
it.
thanks for sharing your story with us.
Of course. Thanks.
Yeah, that's rad. So now it's all
Now
off.
I can hear.
You can say,
Whoa.
like, yeah, I know it's weird, right? We're probably loud as shit.